You got a key there, or whatever, the secret code. My pen's like, why don't we can do it afterwards? Not yet. We're about ready, I think. Do you want to start leaving, hit the bathroom real quick? Too sure. It's too late. So, it's already on.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting for October 15th, 2024. Roll call.
Mr. Edler?
Present?
Ms. Davis is absent. Mr. Kraft?
Present.
Let's all rise for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe, you got anything to change or modify on the agenda? I don't think we're not having an executive session this evening.
I'm good. How about you?
Good. Move for approval of the agenda.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Edler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Okay. Robert, to the minutes.
Yes. So we were sent the draft minutes for the two special meetings of September 17th and the regular meeting of September 17th.
I was absent from the 17th meeting.
Are we allowed to approve them in one day?
Technically you can, but if you don't want to, we just wait until next week.
Wait until we have two that were present to approve these minutes. We'll pass it around.
Next, you have your warrants per your pending warrant reports. They are warrants 45011 through 45091, 94099 through 94114.
I move that we approve the warrants.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
I do have one more thing. We do need to make some adjustments to the appropriations resolution as a result of the issuance of the Series 2024 facilities bonds and the TIF revenue notes. It's to appropriate $17,000 from previously unappropriated funds to contracts, ambulance and EMS fund. That is actually for a Met account. Appropriate $6,488,168 from previously unappropriated funds for economic development from the Drone Brand TIF Fund. Appropriate $304,356 from previously unappropriated funds for other expenses, which were closing costs for the Drone Brand TIF Fund. This is the result of the issuance of the TIF revenue notes of $7,340,000 and the proceeds of debt from the facilities bonds of $1,738,000.
I so move. Any discussion?
Second?
Mr. Adler?
Roll call.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
That's all that I have for now.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up for public participation, but since we have small audience. If anybody would like to step forth at this time, please do so. All right, we're going to move on to the public safety officer. Please come forward, state your name, and address the group.
I'm Tiffany Snyder. I apologize for not making the last meeting. I was in a training, so I'm making up for lost time. I don't have anything to report other than just complaints about construction zones and traffic. If you guys don't have anything else to say, I was asked to ask about Halloween plans. Is there any set trick or treats that you guys want us to be aware of or involved in or anything like that?
I'm not aware of any.
Where was the chief setting the truck up at, just so we could let her know why she's here? Should report back.
I'm not sure. I know he sent Joe, and I cannot think.
I can get with them.
Typically,
There may have been two locations.
Typically, they set up in Jerome Village and in
Okay.
California.
Okay.
In California Woods, I believe, is where they usually
Okay.
set up. So if you want to check with the chief about that, and
Yes,
Halloween time is on October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. in the
Okay.
township.
Okay. Was there anything else?
Just as you said, traffic.
Okay, yes.
I took another complaint. I forwarded it up to the
Okay.
office today. That was over on Ingram, I think.
Okay, yes.
And that's out of concern for young kids in the area and speeders.
It is a detour right now, so we've been trying to work pretty hard.
Yeah, any help you guys can give us, and then of course the speed trailer does wonders, I think. And,
Yes, I believe Dyer was made aware of that, so hopefully
Good.
in the next couple of days.
Good, thank you.
I just might note, I talked to Jeff Stouch, and he mentioned it'd be about one more month for the detour down here going east on Mitchell DeWitt. So
Okay,
I expect that to be no more than one more month closure on there.
alright.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, be safe out there, thanks. Okay. Moving right along, we're going to skip number 8. We do not have an executive session planned for this evening, so we'll go right into the administrator's report. Mr. Stanley, would you please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Adler. Just a couple updates. The restrooms here and the two that are accessible from the park, they're under renovation. We're replacing the stools, the sinks, and the urinals, and all of those. And they did the two outdoor over the last day and a half. They started in here today. That'll be a needed improvement, and so that's good. The road department, you'll see the report in your folders, their work through September. And I'll piggyback on what Mr. Grager wrote there about under parks and Harry Wolf that, and I don't know if I mentioned it at the last meeting or not, but the parking lot out here has also been relined. The asphalt work down to the pond is done, and it's set aside several handicap stalls down there, and they started, we're building the fishing dock, as you recall. That's being built out there as well, so they started that work this week, unfortunately, in the rain, so they had to kind of stop for the day when it started to get real heavy rain, but that is underway. They remain pretty busy all the way around. We did take delivery of the new plow out back, and it's in the garage out here now. That'll be ready for road use this winter. So we're heading in a good path.
How do we stand on salt?
We're good. Yeah, I know they bought it. Yep, we're good. The fire chief, I believe, is planning on being here next meeting to discuss a couple projects there that I think you guys are familiar with. And so we'll wait on that. And then since Mr. Snowden's here, you can discuss anything you have pending for zoning or the comp plan updates.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley, Mr. Adler, Mr. Kraft. Briefly, the statistics were sent out, and the zoning department is on track in terms purely of numbers, of applications received and reviewed. With regard to the comprehensive plan and last night's zoning commission meeting. The zoning commission set a public hearing on the 3.0 draft of the comprehensive plan for December the 9th, Monday, December the 9th at 7 p.m. here at the Township Hall. Further discussion was had with the zoning commission along the lines of what you spoke to me about, Mr. Adler, about the request that another open house be done. And the zoning commission certainly supports that based on the conversations had last night. In talking with MKSK, a tentative date that seems to work for everybody would be the 13th of November. That's excellent. There's not a reason not to do it in my professional opinion. But I'm just going to be requesting, because the contract is complete, I'll need to request additional funds be allocated for the open house, the mailing, and additional staff time. The need to, zoning commission's going to have to continue their hearing, at least one additional meeting to allow time for revisions. And so Brandon and I were knocking around the original request, or the original work authorization that MKSK prepared back in August was $17,000. That was for a total of 4 additional meetings, estimated not to exceed. Brandon and I were knocking around, a number about 10,000. I did have a conversation with Mr. Caldwell that could be encumbered without, without hindering the zoning fund finances. And so if it's not that amount, it's whatever amount the board is willing to allocate, but whatever you allocate, it's not to exceed. So if it's not used, then that's the end, and the funds will remain in the zoning fund.
So the request is for an additional public meeting for the comprehensive
There's
plan
at least 2 more.
draft?
There's
Review.
another open house, and given the feedback from the zoning commission, which is, hey, we're going to review it on the 9th of December, and we're going to continue it at least one more time because of how complicated it is, and we're going to need the zoning commission, this is what they're saying, and I concur with this view, they're going to want time for MKSK to do revisions. So if the zoning commission doesn't continue it, then between November and that hearing, the MKSK has to scramble to do revisions and then drop a revision on the zoning commission, which is what everybody wants to avoid. So that's what we're looking at least 2 more meetings to get through the zoning commission phase. Again, any money that's not used would be made available if the trustees chose to continue one of their hearings. So again, I'm open to other discussions. There's an amount that's needed.
I'm a little confused here. Can you explain? They are going to have an open house on the 13th. Aren't they going to make the revisions for the December 9th meeting to the zoning commission?
No. The zoning commission is going to review the 3.0 draft and receive all of the comments, LUC's comments, and all of the comments at the open house. Then they have stated that they will continue it again. And the zoning commission has the authority to continue it as many times as they would so choose.
Right.
But that's their intention. I don't think that's an unreasonable intention. Sometimes my office, when we're dealing with the zoning amendment, like a text amendment, I'm trying to work quickly to take care of some housekeeping stuff. When the zoning commission is dealing with a document that's 100 pages, the intent was they didn't want MKSK scrambling to do a revision and then dropping that off at the meeting. So I think the intent is that they would continue it at least one other time. I support that view. That's certainly one way to do it.
Okay. So they're asking for input at an open house and a public hearing, both.
See, the open house is not necessarily the zoning commission's thing. It's kind of it's the township's thing. But my understanding is that you supported having another open house, Mr. Adler. The zoning commission supports that as well. If the trustees don't want to do that,
This goes to 2 public hearings, one of which sounds like it's going to be an open house again before we make the revision.
The public hearing was so again, there's 2 different things. The open house is the same format as before with the 3.0 information. The public hearing,
I'd like to make modifications on that format too. we can discuss that.
Okay, well, you'll have an opportunity, I'm aware of that, you'll be able to discuss that directly with MKSK, that's why you're retaining, the zoning commission is retaining them as consultant. We don't need to design that in tonight's meeting. What I'm saying is, I thought this is what you don't, this is what you agreed, Mr. Adler, if you don't concur with this, there's other ways to do it.
Well, I thought we were gonna have an open house and revisions would be made before the public hearing of the zoning commission.
Well, and again, that's one way to do it, that's not what the zoning commission is saying
All
they
right,
want to do.
if that's how they wanna handle it, I'd rather handle it the way they wanna handle it.
Okay.
Okay. Joe, your thoughts?
It's been a process, and, you know, I'd hate to run it to the goal line too early and fumble the ball, you know, and have people feel that they didn't have the opportunity to, you know what was going on. I was actually going to ask Eric, for the public that's here, maybe those folks that could be watching or reading the newspaper, if you could kind of just explain briefly the process that's gone through and the number of meetings and such, without having that in front of you.
No problem,
That's right.
I certainly can, and I'll do as quickly as I can. MKSK was retained over a year and a half ago. Contract by law is with the zoning commission officially, but the trustees allocated the funds. The zoning, they held, to my knowledge, to my recollection, 3 meetings with a steering committee and either 3 or 4 open houses. I could go look at my file in the other room. On top of that, they had a website that was active basically this entire time, where they have been receiving public comment. That website is actually active again as of this morning. It was paused, that portion of the website was paused for a couple days just to get us to the zoning commission hearing for that week. So they weren't still collecting revisions as the zoning commission was being asked to set a public hearing. They have also met with stakeholders, including the board. That was included. They did interviews from a long list of folks that I generated with Brandon's assistance. And that process continues. So the website is active for the community to continue to give feedback. They can also file that with my office. They can call me. I can help. Some of it's education, Joe. A lot of it's education, sir. But substantive comments are all being routed. They have a detailed correspondence file. They've made several revision plans for the 2.0 and 3.0 draft. So there's no harm in having additional open house. What I would just tell you is what we're kind of grappling with right now is the question, how long is a piece of string? The answer, as long as it needs to be. If it's the feeling of the board, and it's a feeling of the zoning commission that an additional open house is worthwhile, then I support that completely. The zoning commission felt that way. And again, I don't think it's an unreasonable ask at this point. If they were asking for 5 or 6 meetings, I probably would say, hey, that's not reasonable. But they're suggesting 1, which is what was suggested from some residents. And what you suggested to me, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mr. Adler, but I thought that's what you want. I'm trying to respond to what I understood your position to be. If the board feels that extra open house is not necessary, the feedback website will remain. The zoning commission hearing will then become the next place to submit your public comment, or I will continue to route it to the consultant if it's submitted in writing. And the board would just take no further action to allocate the funds, and I would convey that down, and that's where we're at. So this is what we're grappling with. There's no right answer here. It's just what the board is comfortable with. I apologize. I'm not giving you better direction. I'm just trying to, I don't want to give you a hard sell on anything.
Well, I agree we need to see this to the finish line. I'm just disappointed that it wasn't done on a timely manner and it wasn't completed to what we expected at this point. But if we've got to pay extra to get it done, I guess that's what we need to do.
I'd agree.
And I would like to have itemized what these extra charges are that we're going to be incurring go up to 10,000 as is suggested, or a lesser amount?
The board could do less. Whatever is submitted will be itemized based on the table of additional services that's in the contract, which bills for the staff time, so that'll all be listed in there. The billing will not be as it was before, where it was by the project task, because we're in a different system here, just purely be by the hour. So all I can tell you is, it doesn't matter to me if the board wants to do 5,000, that moves it forward. I just can't guarantee you that I won't be back. I'm happy to do that as well, but it's up to you. Whatever amount is not spent, I give you my word as your employee, I will do what I can to keep the cost down. That's the best I can tell.
Robert, any input on
No, that's fine. I mean, the money is available for that additional amount.
It doesn't mean that it'll be all spent,
it? Right.
just based upon what the need is and how long the meeting is and that.
In the number of revisions, if the number of revisions that are necessary based on that, then that's additional staff time as well.
Make a motion.
So the motion would be allocated additional $10,000 for
Up to,
extra services.
Planning services,
up
not
planning
to
service-
exceed.
MKSK not to exceed $10,000 to MKSK. I
second.
move, yep.
Okay, Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Are there any other questions I can answer for you about that? We will report back with the invoices as they would be received.
Thank you, Eric.
And just as a note, that anybody that wants to make comments online, to go to Jerome Township Comprehensive Plan.com, and there's a little box you can view the current draft, which is 3.0, and then underneath that there's a brief survey form asking 3 basic questions. So, we would encourage anybody that has not had an opportunity to be involved in this process. It sounds like we're still going to have another month or two to get your feedback and make revisions. So, appreciate that.
Appreciate your support.
That's all I have in my report.
Just a brief question that was brought up to me in regards to the cannabis zoning text revisions provided by LUC. Do you have any rough idea when you'd be able to get back? We're looking at maybe mid-November as a potential date to have some options and recommendations back.
I believe I did some of that already.
I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
LUC's work is done.
Right.
Eric and I talked about it that same week, which was last week?
Or the week before.
Last week or the week before.
I know we've got a busy agenda on the first weekend,
Right.
first week in November, but
Right.
perhaps by the second week we can have that.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're asking me, Mr. Adler, is that you would like to initiate a text amendment. Is that the request?
I'd like to initiate discussions with the board.
I can give you a very brief, what Brad wrote in the LUC model text is well done. The question and the challenge will be, and this is always the challenge, is identifying which of the standard zoning districts will be the appropriate district for the particular use. So I'm prepared to make that recommendation. I'm prepared as soon as the next meeting, but it sounds like we have a full agenda. So if you would like me to make a presentation about, maybe not have the text amendment fully fleshed out, but if you would like a presentation about what I would recommend to the board by the second meeting, your second meeting in November, I can look at the calendar. The only caveat is Peyton and I are going to be traveling to a conference, so I just got to make sure all the dates line up. That's not an unreasonable request, if that's what your request is, sir.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks.
we'd agreed we'd do that.
Okay, next on our agenda is old business, a resolution to approve, I think we have 2 JED amendments here that need approval. You should have copies of this in your folder there, and I know we've had a public hearing on this already, so it's just a formality at this point to go through this. So I move we have a resolution approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the Joint Economic Development District contract by and between the City of Marysville, Ohio, and Jerome Township for the Kroger out parcel in Jerome Professional Park.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Sign some stuff first before we go on to.
Okay.
Sign both at the same time. We're going to pause briefly for appropriate signatures.
Mr. Caldwell, did Debbie and I put 2 copies of that in there, one of each agreement, or just 1 copy? I can't recall.
I only see one.
Okay, that should be sufficient in this case.
There's 2 places to sign.
We don't need to send them to City of Marysville.
We can send them as a PDF. Debbie and I can send those as a
Yeah,
PDF.
okay. How do we put in yay on that? Next to the name.
Sure, go ahead.
Just put yes instead of yay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Our second resolution, I move to have a resolution approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the Joint Economic Development District contract by and between the City of Marysville, Ohio, and Jerome Township, Union County, Ohio, for Ohio Health.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
We're going to pause again for the appropriate signatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's why I make the big bucks.
Is that
That's why you make the big bucks.
sometimes a cool break is all that you have? I mean,
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Moving right along, we've got new business, a discussion of right-of-way regulations. Mr. Snowden, would you like to brief us on this
Yes.
motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kraft. This is complicated, but I will do my best to succinctly convey this to you. The township is responsible via our road superintendent, Mr. Grader, for maintaining certain roads and right-of-ways. Within those right-of-ways, the township often gets requests for a number of things. One, for public utilities to locate there, which as a general rule must be allowed. Two, for piping of the culverts, but not including the driveway, but the unenclosed culvert to enclose that at the homeowner's expense. And three, for installation of trees within dedicated rights of way at the expense of the abutting homeowner where no such tree is currently located. All of those things are frequent requests for the township road department. Back in 2004, the township adopted a resolution requiring a permit from the zoning inspector for piping. I have no record that any permit has ever been issued under that, and Mr. Caldwell was not even aware that such a resolution even existed until we dug it out of the records. But nonetheless, the situation is this. One, when a homeowner wishes to enclose a culvert, that's perfectly reasonable. We need to have a permitting process so that Vince is made aware of it, has an opportunity to get with other public officials such as the engineer's office. And three, issue a permit so that it can be documented that the homeowner is responsible. Because on top of all that, with regard to the pipes, the homeowners are often looking to, after they enclose it, the homeowners or future homeowners of that lot are looking to the road department to maintain that, which is not their responsibility in a right-of-way easement. With regard to the excavations, the township is often contacted from these folks, these public utilities and their subcontractors. The purpose of the permit will be to document where the work will be, allow Vince to contact other public agencies for guidance, and to have the contact information of the public utility or of the subcontractor so that he can ensure or help ensure that the area is restored. That's a frequent complaint. And then with regard to the trees, absent a permitting process such this, whenever a homeowner wanted to add a new tree within a right-of-way at their expense, technically speaking, the best practice would have been for the board to approve it, and as the board, and because of the egregiousness of that, folks just do it and don't obtain a permit. So again, the better practice being allow Vince to monitor that on your behalf and ensure that that is happening. Again, that's only at the homeowner's expense. It's not addressing places where they've been installed or the township. There's a whole other side to that whole part. It's only trying to address when a homeowner wants to do it at their expense, especially where no such trees exist. For example, in New California, we get that request from time to time because there are none. They were not installed at the time of development. So the permit would be a $50 permit. That's the maximum amount that would be is allowed to be collected by law. Technically, Mr. Caldwell is the person who has to collect that by law, but we will have an internal process for accepting the application, routing it, receiving the money, filing them, routing them to Vince for approval, and all of those things. So this is attempting to address those three things. It is not attempting to deal with every possible situation that could come up within the right-of-way. But if you chose to adopt these regulations, they would supersede and repeal the pipe resolution from 2008, and so we wouldn't have to deal with that anymore, and things would be updated and more streamlined based on the situations that we're seeing. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. I'll just say this, Ms. Huber and I drafted these. Ms. Huber reviewed them in detail as to their legal form, tracking the statutes. This is actually one of the most difficult thing I have ever done because it is dealing with the revised code on roads, which is very complex. I did give copies to the county engineer staff and just to confirm with them. And there is one other thing. There is a note in here that any permit, whenever the county engineer's office is issuing a permit, such as a driveway permit for a culvert, then that particular project would be exempt from this permitting process. It's not trying to duplicate anything. It only, and lastly, it only applies to township roads only. It does not apply to county roads or to state highways, as those are regulated by those agencies directly, only deals with township roads. So my view is that if the board adopted this, this would be something that would be revisited from time to time and would grow as the township's needs change, or be modified and amended as the needs change, or if the township down the line chose to exercise home rule powers, the right-of-way resolutions get much more complex at that point. So this is probably the best we can do as a statutory township to deal with some of these situations as expeditiously as possible. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a pressing need to make a decision this evening on this? Because I'd like to review this a little bit further. I'm just kind of
There's no pressing need, you know.
because I do have a number of questions that just jump out at me as I'm reviewing this. It says here that the fiscal officer shall forward the application to the superintendent for review, so he's got to take the application as a fiscal officer rather than through the zoning department.
So I'd be happy to answer that question. It's a very simple question. So it's Robert or his designee. The reason that it says fiscal officer is because that's what the statute says. Okay, so we're not going to write anything that the statute doesn't say. However, in an administrative capacity, what I am expecting, and this is not, I'm just going to tell you what I think. If Brandon changes it, that he's allowed to do that, that's why you should capture administrator. And Robert's your fiscal officer. But my understanding is that the zoning department would accept the permit, receipt the money, and we will route it to Vince for review and assist him as needed, making scans, notifying the engineer's office. We will be his administrative support. Once the permit is issued, we will contact them and they will be issued a permit that says right-of-way permit, not zoning permit. It will not have my signature on it. I'll confirm with legal, but I believe we'll have the road superintendent's signature on it. And then we will work with Debbie and Michelle to file that with the road records, not with the zoning records. So this is one of those things that touches everything. The zoning department, because we are the permit people, is more than happy to assist in guiding this, but we're going to do it collaboratively with everybody. Just as I called Mr. Caldwell last week or the week before to say, hey, this is out there. We're going to work with him and do things and get approvals from him for routine procedures when needed, but we're doing it on his behalf.
And I guess I'm also concerned that other public officials may be solicited for comments, but not limited to the county engineer. It doesn't say that the county engineer has to review this.
So this is designed to be as flexible as possible.
Because my question being, does the superintendent have the engineering expertise to determine how a pipe should be laid and how the culvert and everything needs to intersect?
Probably not. And so the answer to that question would be they will be routed to the county engineer as a matter of practice. That was designed to be as, this process is it's designed to be as flexible as possible because it doesn't cover every eventuality. But you might have a situation like with a street tree, especially where there's already existing street tree that's been cut down and the resident is choosing to replace it at their own expense. Do we need the engineer's office to say that a tree can go there? Maybe, maybe not. Vince might be able to handle that. We don't know, okay? It's designed to be flexible, but I'm gonna guess, and I'm looking to Brandon's guidance here, that the standard, let's put it this way, we've already been doing this just without the road right-of-way regulations. We get contacted by the public utility contacts whoever, could be Robert, could be Brandon, could be me, could be all of us at once, and we tell them, hey, we do not have a permitting procedure, but would you please send us a copy of plans? So we get that copy, we send out the PDF, we check with the engineer's office, but when it said other public officials, if it's dealing with drainage, maybe it's soil and water. If it's touching somebody's septic, like we had that septic pipe the other year, maybe it's the health department that's contacted as well. So it's flexible based on what the needs of the project are.
I guess I would just like to ensure that if it does require any engineering, that we are required to run it by qualified engineers, not having the flexibility to say yes or no on our own. So that's a concern to me, that there may be some liability if we make an error in terms of, like you said, the pipe from a septic tank being not connected correctly, it could come back to bite us later if we didn't consult with the appropriate expertise.
Well, right now, everybody's just doing these projects with no permit. So, I certainly hear what you're saying, but I would just encourage you not to let maybe what in your mind is perfect be the enemy of a major improvement in the permitting process.
And then I guess another question I have is, say $50 is the maximum to get a permit, what does it really cost us? Do we need to charge that much if we want to encourage people to plant more trees? What's the,
We're probably not collecting anything right now.
Right now, we're collecting nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Needed
and
something
by the way,
reasonable,
The
but-
law also says if the permit is denied, we have to return it, which is written into the law, and I've never seen that in any government permitting process ever, but that is the way the statute was written. The General Assembly in their wisdom wrote that. I don't think whether we're required, there's also a waiver procedure. So for example, like let's say here's a great example. Let's say there's a Boy Scout project in New California. One young man wants to plant 5 trees down the whole street for all the neighbors, or throughout the neighborhood with all the senior citizens or all the veterans. He's going to plant a tree. The board, at that point, we would still take the permit in, and the board could grant a waiver, and we would just have him waive. We would come before you with his plan.
is that stated in?
Correct, there's a waiver procedure. Check out top of page 2, waivers. It says the board may from time to time grant waivers from the provisions of these regulations. So that's an example where the board, we would just bring that before the board says waiver approved, and then we grant the permit and we don't charge them the $50. Or we don't require the drawings be submitted. Vince does the drawing, or I work with him to do the drawing. Those are the type of thing. It's designed to be super flexible to take into account these things. I would just say this, I would never advise anyone, it'll always be my advice, and I feel like I have worked well and closely enough with Brandon. If someone is submitting for one of these, the engineer's office will be notified. That's just going to be the way that we do things. That's the purpose again, because right now, having this process, right now, folks are just doing these things
Right.
without notifying anybody.
And my last item of concern is one that I've expressed previously. We do not have a approved street tree list.
Yes.
So who is going to be making that decision what street trees?
Yeah, well, the answer to your question is this is designed to grow with us, okay? And certainly, every project has to have a beginning and end. I could have said we won't do the right-of-way regulations until we have a street tree policy that might take Jennifer and I 6 months to write, work with you, work with the zoning commission, work with other stakeholders. So what I wrote, and Ms. Huber agreed that this was a good approach because there's going to be a policy, is our hope, and then the zoning resolution in some places when it's talking about street trees is going to refer over to that as well. That's the intent. That's why we wrote comma, if any. So the idea is the board will not have to reinvent the wheel with regulations like this when such a street tree policy is in place. Again, right now, there's no policy, there's no permitting procedure, and there's nothing that would even remotely, again, the purpose of this is public safety, not perfection. So why do you want to allow, street trees are aesthetic, but aesthetically pleasing. Vince wants to make sure they're not in front of signs where they're going to be a hazard to public safety. So maybe for the next few months, it's not as good as it could be because he doesn't have a list of street trees in a policy to guide him in selecting the species. He could certainly try to do that informally if the person's cooperative. But more importantly, I'd like to focus you on the public safety, which is avoiding these going in front of signs, which is something that we've seen from time to time over the years.
And then last, is it more of a fiscal responsibility? I know this question has come up, who's responsible for the cost of trees being replaced, sidewalk repairs? Does this permitting process obligate us then before that decision has been made, or is it?
It's not, I would just tell you it's not related to that. Okay, that is a separate conversation. I know Brandon and Robert are having some discussions. That is not related to this particular document. This particular document.
If somebody applies to do something on their own.
Correct, because again, right now the process is they would have to come before the board for action, which is such an egregious procedure in most cases that people are like, well, forget it, I'm doing it. hence then we have public safety challenges. That's the permitting.
I just want to make sure that if they get a permit to do this, then we're not responsible for paying for that tree to be placed in the right of way.
Yeah, so this specifically says at landowner expense for abutting landowners. So it's designed to deal with that specific outcome. This, again, may have to be revised as some of these legal questions about ownership and obligations are answered. What I would expect, Mr. Adler, is that these regulations will grow, or maybe they'll start to break out. Maybe we have a permitting resolution, maybe we have a resolution just on sidewalks dealing with that. It might be a home rule resolution someday, if a future board. You might have a street tree policy, and all these things are going to work together. So what I would just convey to you is that this is kind of step one. It's covering down on the three main things that Brandon and I and Mr. Graver see. I could have left out the street tree things. I just know Vince gets asked about that because there are residents not in areas where there's an existing street tree, but where there are street trees that are no street trees, or there aren't any in the neighborhood, that the resident wants to do it on their own volition. And we just want to make a pathway that isn't come before the entire board. That's the only purpose there. It's not trying to solve these other problems.
Joe, any questions or discussion? I don't recall seeing this before this evening, and I don't know if our third trustee has seen it, reviewed it, or made any comments. So I would like to just table this to the next meeting before we make a decision.
Like carry it forward on the agenda. All right.
We'll just slide it down to old business next meeting.
All right, maintenance agreement easement Darby Brayside. Mr. Snowden, would you like to give us a more brief, as
What I
briefly
can-
as you can?
Yes, sir. I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding this agreement, there have been a series of these agreements in different developments where private improvements to be maintained by the HOA, or clearly intended to be maintained by the HOA, were placed within the right-of-way of a public road. In some cases, that was shown on plans of various types. In the case of Darby Brayside, that was not shown anywhere. Mr. Huber and I drafted this agreement in order to allow the gate within the right-of-way of Wycliffe Drive to remain, and be clear that the HOA is responsible for maintenance and what the township is responsible for. So absent this, the other alternative would be Vince writes an order as a right-of-way obstruction and says they gotta move it. So it'd be the pleasure of the board to pass this motion, we would, there are 2 copies there, I think we have to have Brandon sign, or Brandon or Robert sign the notarized version, so it might just be signing the motion. Robert, you have to take a look. So, but we would just request your approval. You've done 3 of these already. I believe there's at least 3 more out there that Ms. Huber and I are working on as time allows, so we'll probably still be doing this time next year with some existing developments.
And I just want to make sure that the part of the HOA, I guess that we're making this agreement, has had an opportunity to review this.
They drafted it. Okay, so we sent them a model and a model text from, I want to say,
I know we did one of these.
from the
about a
last
year
one,
ago.
yes, sir. From the last one, they revised it with their attorney. I sent it back. I did a couple red lines with Jen. We sent it back. Everybody agreed that this was acceptable, and so we brought it before the board. They have to sign it as well, but they have already informally said we're good with it.
Joe, any further questions or discussion?
I was going to just mention to Eric that I wasn't trustee when Darby Brayside had gone before the board,
Yeah.
but I was a property owner that was adjacent,
Okay.
and it was promised that there'd be like an asphalt path around the development that
Okay.
the adjacent properties could use.
Okay.
And I just ask you to look into that and let me know
Sure.
what you find out.
Yeah, that was a zone. That is zone rural residential district. So
Okay.
they did a plat, and we've seen these in developments that have been rezoned PV. On the landscape plan, they have a gate in the right of way, and the zoning inspector at the time should have probably said, hey, either move it, which we've done a couple times recently, or you gotta have one of these as part of the development. That didn't happen in some of these developments years ago, so we're kind of conforming these now, if you will. But in this particular case, that did not go through a rezoning. I'd be happy to look into
Okay.
that.
May have just been made a promise to the adjacent properties, I don't know.
Well, we've been having a dialogue with the original developer and landowner, so I don't have a problem reaching out to them.
Okay,
And we'll let the board know.
Okay with this?
yeah.
Make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve and adopt the maintenance agreement
With Darby Brace.
with Darby Brayside and authorize and direct the fiscal officer and township administrator to take all necessary actions to execute the agreement and carry it forward.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Editor?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes,
Pause briefly for signing.
Actually, I think this needs to be notarized when you sign it, so put it in packet.
If you don't mind, then Mr. Stanley will have Michelle notarize that with you tomorrow. That's why we had Jennifer write that motion to say township administrator or fiscal officer, so depending on whoever I have in a headlock at that moment is the one who has to sign.
So, Joe might not need to sign that.
No, sir.
All right, next on our new business is a travel request OKI planning conference.
I put together a memo, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kraft, which Brandon has reviewed and has been
Very
briefly
good.
discussed with Robert. Peyton and I would like to go to a planning conference for the reasons stated in there, and we wanted to come before you based on the provision in the personnel policies and procedures that the request for travel will be approved in advance. It is technically out of state, but it's only in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so we'll be driving.
When is our second meeting in November?
That's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so we should be good.
yeah. I think two trustees could sign off on that amount and also,
Right,
you know, so yeah, I'm good for that.
okay.
Think it's a great idea.
We don't need a motion to do it, Robert.
Not necessarily. I'll just put in the minutes that the board approves.
Okay.
There is no objection.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can come in if you want, but we're staying in the same hotel room, so you have a folding bed there.
Okay. Well, we're winding down
The suite
here.
would probably have a Murphy bed and a couch with a bed in it and two queens in the other room and
Somebody got killed
another
in a Murphy.
room in the
There's
other
a lot of
room.
rumors about the zoning department's travel, but it's not accurate.
This is your copy.
Two nights for $350. I don't think you're staying in a suite.
I do put it on good authority.
Hotel 6 maybe.
Another planner at another regional planning commission who shall remain nameless is on vacation in a tropical setting right now, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm a little jealous.
Not involved with the Columbus Zoo.
What's that?
Columbus Zoo. Okay.
All right, enough humor for tonight. Let's move along here. We've got some announcements. This Saturday, October 19th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., there will be a firehouse open house at Station 210, located at 9689 US Route 42 North in Plain City, Ohio. Trick or treat will be on Thursday, October 31st, 2024, from 6 to 8 p.m. Since the election is on Tuesday, November the 5th, and will be held at the Jerome Township Hall, the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be on Wednesday, November 6th, 2024, at 7 p.m. at the Township Hall. I might add just a comment to this that early voting is now available at our Union County Board of Elections. We've had several people stopping by here. We are not holding any early voting at this location, but please go to the Union County Board of Elections located in Marysville, and If you would like to, you can go onto their website. It's very easy to put your name and address in to check what your sample ballot is before you go to vote, so you have an opportunity to review all the issues that are on the ballot. Veterans Day is Monday, November 11th, 2024 at 11 a.m. at the Township Hall. Further details are pending. Did you have any further comment on that at this point?
No, I do not.
We're going to have it here at the hall on November 11th at 11 a.m. AEP transmission project, I'm supposed to make a formal announcement that AEP is rerouting approximately 0.8 of a mile of existing 345 kilovolt transmission line to support the future Celtic 345 kilovolt extension and to accommodate a property owner's site development in Jerome Township, Union County. If you want more details, you can see the map on our website. Just scroll down on the front page there. That's under AEP project. And just to summarize very briefly, it looks like there's an existing line that shoots through what appears to be the Amazon property, and this is basically to go around to the back side of the property. It goes up Industrial Parkway, down Warner Road, and down the back of Amazon. And they're going to be doing this work. Construction begins in January and continues through the summer of 2025. So that's going to be an ongoing project. If you would like to receive notifications regarding the Board of Trustees meetings, please email the Township office at jerometownship@jerometownship.com. There's currently a vacancy for an alternate position on the Board of Zoning Appeals. We're currently accepting applications for this position. Please visit the Jerome Township website to fill out an application. Question?
Just to add on to, even though the Veterans Day services will be here, our offices will be closed that day in observance of the holiday.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Time is 7:56 p.m.